back in when we were recording the Holy Bible, we weren't far away from here because we were in Soundspace Studios, which is now knocked down, which is what, 200 yards away?
Yeah.
The British Gas building. Really cheap, seedy studio with an amazing drum room. And we just decided to, we'd done Gold Against the Soul in an unbelievably huge residential studio. And we just wanted to kind of reclaim the post-punk soul of the band.
Nick has been quoted as saying as that Gold Against the Soul has lots of good guitar solos, but not as good many tunes or lyrics.
That's true.
Thing. And perhaps, you know, we'd embraced the kind of the shtick of being kind of a major label, kind of like, act. And you know, I was still living with my parents at that time. I remember one day just going through my record collection, and there were so many records in there that just weren't represented in our music anymore. And I think it was just a slow realisation that perhaps we'd just lost our way a tiny bit.
I just bought a little terraced house. I just moved out of my mum and dad's and bought a terraced house in Wattsville. And like Jim said, all of a sudden I was looking at the Skids and magazine and the Banshees and that, and starting to think, like, how come, where's that gone? Because we were, you know, overdosing on Guns N' Roses and Alice in Chains and classic rock and stuff. And we did have particularly the vision we tried to force forward, well, me and Richie tried to force on James and Sean, was to be this gigantic kind of rock band. So. But we all kind of, it was all happening at the same time. Sean, myself, James and Richie were all of a sudden gravitating to early Bunny Men and all the records that kind of set us going, James, for early Simple Minds. Just all those records that we loved, 16 to 15, 14, you know, they all started just tapping away at us.
The first songs that we completed were Die in the Summertime and Mausoleum, because they're the only two songs which have existing demos of. So we'd kind of talked the talk about this mood change in the band and the direction we were going to take, which is always an essential part of what we do. We always try to talk a good game before we actually even write a song, you know, for that new direction or wherever it is. So those two songs were the first, Die in the Summertime and Mausoleum, which was originally called No Birds. And it's kind of, I suppose they set the tone perfectly, I suppose, really. You know, there was an essential bleakness to them, but it was still energised. It wasn't mortal in its musical attack. It was still very pointed, and you know, we knew that essentially that we could take those songs on the road. We could still be that live act that was very confrontational.
Well, for me, I can remember it vividly because Mark Goodyear played Faster on daytime radio on Radio 1, and I remember hearing it and thinking, oh my God, that doesn't sound like Parklife or Live Forever, which are all out, you know, at that time. And I remember what did Mark Goodyear said? It's a bit strange or something, he said. Yeah. He said, it's good, but it's a bit odd, a bit different.
a bit different from Manics.
And I just hearing it on the radio, it made me feel really good. You know, I just thought, God. And to get a top 20 hit with a track like Faster, it seems centuries ago that, you know, you could have a chance of doing that. It still staggers me now when we play it, thinking we were on top of the pops doing that. You know, the top 20 hit. It's just.
I suppose the bottom line with the Bible, I think, but the first song we recorded was 4 Stone 7 Pounds. I think we barely ever rehearsed it at all.
I can't remember.
And it's one of the hardest songs to play on the record. Even now, it's really hard to play. You've got to take a deep breath before you do that song. Literally,
yeah, especially.
And we recorded it in like 3 takes or so. Sean's part is unbelievably complicated and just pure emotion. And I just remember thinking, this music must be just, you know, inside us, because it felt easy once we actually started recording in the studio. It really was quite easy. I think it's a snapshot of the time, and it's a snapshot of Richie to a certain degree as well, you know, in terms of lyrics and the tone that it set. I would be very wary to try and kind of like, you know, make it relevant to the day, you know. It really does. Perhaps it's because we were so deeply involved and it was such an intense, enjoyable thing for us to do. But I associate it with you know, those times and all the information that Richie was digesting then, and then Nick trying to balance things out a bit with some of the lyrics, and just, you know, I really see it as a snapshot. I don't think it's something that travels across the decades and can be.
I think the emotions are relevant to people.
Yeah.
Because like it'll sell 5,000 copies every year, or wherever it is, you know, like those cut albums, like Unknown Pleasures or whatever. And I think people get emotions are probably the only timeless thing about it. That there's, whether it's a darkness or whether it's just an intellect, that kind of gets to people. But like Jim said, I don't know if you can just transpose it like tracing paper on today, because I don't even know if it'd get released today. I mean, the way the conservatism of music and record companies and everything now, I just don't know if anyone would want to take that risk, really.
It's, you know, and the fact that you mentioned Unknown Pleasures, for me, that is a snapshot. It's been described as like this, you know, pre-digital record, you know, kind of an organic futurism that people were seeing in this Ballardian landscape, and you know, you see, you know, Unknown Pleasures by Joy Division that's been stuck in the late 70s in Manchester. I somehow associate, you know, Holy Bible with kind of 1993 in this area kind of thing, you know, I just do. I think the only apprehension you'd ever have is, can you still do it? Because it's you know, it's really strange. You actually attempt to do something you've never done before. Even when the Holy Bible was out, we were only playing 6 tracks off it every night, you know, just like any band does when they got a new record out. So we're actually looking to play all that record and then play a second set. So that kind of, you know, before we actually made the decision, we kind of road tested our old bones in the studio to see if we could actually do it. You know, and after a bit of practice, we could. I think that was the only apprehension I had. You know, could we actually serve the ferocity of the intent behind everything? And you know, it seemed like we could because we practiced it right here. I didn't have any other apprehension. I felt, again, you know, it sounds like a bit of a contradiction, but we kind of felt as if we just wanted our last chance to celebrate. You know what a lot of people see as Richie's, you know, towering achievement within the band. And that's nice, it is. I think, you know, when people see us playing it, you know, they do connect it to Richie. They still see Richie, which is cool.
I think it was important as well to give the whole thing, you know, the camouflage, the kind of militarized look. You know, the production's been really important. I wouldn't want it just to turn up in civvy clothes and just blast a few songs out, you know. It's an album. Sometimes when we've done Holy Bible songs in normal sets, they never really quite work because it is such a state of mind. You really have to, you know, because it's such an album of anger in some respects and detail and that, you have to kind of get in the zone. So doing it as a complete piece feels better than chucking faster in sometimes. You know, I remember doing Intense Summon of Evil one of the few times we did it in Manchester Academy in 94, 95 or whatever. And it's just like the bar.
It was a stampede to the bar.
It was a stampede to the bar. Whereas this time, actually, I think it sort of hypnotically grinds into you. But it had to be 20 years, to be honest. Another year down the line, physically, I'm not sure if we could have done it. It's the most physically demanding record to play. Everything's in the wrong place, musically, lyrically, angular, your posture. The whole thing is just really difficult. Certainly as a rhythm section, it is impossible at times. And for him to do all that singing, you know, I think it was the right time, the last chance to play it. And like I said, for those words to breathe across continents and stuff, and for kind of Richie's intellect traveling with us, it just felt really the right time. No, playing live is terrible if that's what you can ask.
Now, when you're playing these songs one after another, after another, after another,
in a live context.
Yeah, and we're 46, you know, there's, you know, it's kind of, it's like giving that kind of like, you know, a football player more of a kind of deep lay-in role in the midfield. You know, you've got to learn to kind of like lay back off some of the playing now and again, but it always was hard to play live.
Yeah, it was. You
know, but in the studio, you're in a controlled environment. You do a take, you can have a rest, you can do a take. But it was always hard live. It just was.
We did on the tour, we did a gig in the High Street in Cardiff. It used to be the Ritzy. I think it was the Astoria when we played it. The air conditioning broke down. It was the middle of summer. It was the hottest gig of all time. And it was the only time we did Mausoleum. ever before this tour. And even then, I've seen the footage, Jim's just stopped singing. He just, it's so hot and the words are so mad, whereas now he sings it all. But even then you can just see us looking, going, oh God, can we play You Love Us?
Yeah, can we just yeah, but it's kind of, it's still, dare I say it, there's still a nice challenge to it. We are confronted by the music and the audience is confronted by the music, and that's quite a unique experience as a band, because, not like I said, yeah, it's all of it is confrontational to the audience and the musicians playing it. You know, it really is still quite a strange but invigorating experience when it's going right.
Feels pretty special to me as well, that every time we play in it, you know, all those amazing words, most of which Richie wrote, they've kind of travelled through the universe these last 20 years. There's people in the audience who know every single syllable, you know, which is not easy in itself. And the kind of intelligence and the detail in those words, that they're still, whether we just come back from America or we're doing one show in Japan with it as well and all over across Britain, to feel those words just still kind of resonating, you know, I think it's a really healthy thing.
There are kind of like moments incongruous moments where, you know, I'll invite the audience to sing a chorus back just to give myself a small break, and you know, some of the words they're singing back to you, you know, en masse, it's kind of strange.
Pretty unpalatable.
Yeah, you know, singing back the chorus to Mausoleum or of Walking Abortions or Yes. You know, it's kind of weird because, you know, you associate people singing back like that as a mob with kind of some kind of celebration, but it's not. But they're expressing it. It's weird.
Noticed it first at the Roundhouse in particular with No Birds, where the chorus just took off, you know, without prompting the first time. Yeah. It was like, oh my God, it was like Designed for Life, but people singing No Birds, you know, and the sky is swollen black. And it was stunning, actually. And that's happened quite a few times, you know, on the shows we've done. It's just, even in America and Canada, they still had that chorus of Yes, had people singing it back to you. It's certainly one of those cult albums that if you liked it, I think you love it forever. Well, when I put my proposal to the band,
the benevolent dictatorship
as I tend to do, and write my list and saying these could be the gigs for the first part, and we want to do CIA first time or Motorpoint, we'll try and save something for something special. But to be honest, I just racked my brain thinking, really, from Chapter, I think Chapter was probably the first gig in Cardiff, then the Square Club, to 2 people, one of which was Richie's sister.
3.
What was it? Yeah. Mark Jones, Rachel.
And her boyfriend.
Right. 3 people. Chapter was quite good, actually. It was probably 16, 20 people.
Yeah.
Through all the gigs, St. David's Hall, Millennium, there's not many places we haven't done, you know. And
Cooper's Field,
yeah, Radio 1. Bobby Gould Must Go. It just felt, you know, we'd always been quite jealous of bands who'd done the Castle, because I remember, well, Paul Weller last year, everyone was raving about that, and obviously the Phonics, I remember thinking how amazing that was. So it just seemed like the perfect fit for, you know, to finish it, to go out in style on the Holy Bible, because we won't be doing it again in the UK. You know, we've got one show left in Tokyo, but that is it. You know, it's we're too old to do it anymore. Well, we are in a very fragile state as I speak to you now. You know, it just becomes overwhelming. You know, after our service stop at Lee Delamere, our last bit of freedom, it feels like when you're coming back to a gig like this, you know, in your capital city and your home and stuff, everything starts to really becoming big. And it is incredible. It's always more nerve-wracking playing at home anyway. In a place where you've never played before, obviously you're out of your comfort zone as well. You don't know anything about it, so you're just kind of hoping at the moment, and trying to concentrate on what you can do yourself.
Everybody always says, you know, oh yeah, you know, you're playing Cardiff, it's going to be like hands in the air and it's going to be mad. And, you know, you've actually got to work at every gig you have. And when there's expectations, sometimes you just got to work harder. You have. got to work hard on that stage to get people on side.
Especially with an album like Holy Bible, obviously. And
it is just nerve-wracking, it is. And you're thinking halfway through the gig, you know, I hope my dad's okay. I hope he hasn't slipped over somewhere in the crowd. It's just have these little rational thoughts going through your head. So between all those things, it just always feels like there's more pressure.
And the fact that it's being filmed as well, which was never our plan, I mean, really grateful and all that, but obviously when we booked the gig, it was just trying to do something, to finish in style. And everything's come together in this cacophony of Cardiff swarming with millions of people and gigs and coverage, and it feels like a genuinely kind of natural hype, which doesn't offer, those things. It happens like when we did the Millennium. That was one of those natural things, and this has certainly felt the same way. It's just sort of taken a life of its own.
It's that Castro moment, isn't it? When we played in like Cuba, we never thought Castro would turn up with a gig, and when he did, we were like, oh, now the pressure, kind of thing. And then kind of when you realise it's just cameras there. It's but it's cool. It's all good. We're good to go. We can do this.
It's been a brilliant couple of years, don't get me wrong, from Rewind to film to Futurology. Futurology is one of our best records, and the reviews and sales and everything and awards, but I just don't know how we reconfigure, really, at the moment. It's good that the Holy Bible's come along, because I just don't know lyrically where I can go personally, and just as 46-year-old people in a very kind of shifting musical landscape, just trying to find somewhere that we know we can be really brilliant at, because it's got to be as good or if not better than Futurology. We can't put anything out worse, otherwise it'd just be a bad way to end.
So it might just have to go.
Everything must go 20
rock and roll
next year.
As the Magic Preacher said, a good time for all.
I just, it's going to be hard, It's uncertainty, and it's being in a band is brilliant. It's just actually trying to make something worthwhile to its history, I guess. It's more Walk Me to the Bridges about, really, just trying to live up to your history.
Just getting to that point, it's kind of, the music always starts when Nick, gives me a lyric, or when it used to be Nick and Richie, and you just need those words to start flowing to actually know where you're going, and that usually gets you there. And so we have no idea at the moment, because there are no lyrics.
I mean, I think it's the longest period I don't think we've written a song for a year.
Perhaps you get Sean to write some lyrics.
No, that would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
Guns and drums.